Hey guys, it's Alfie, and today I'm back with a very anticipated video. I've been wanting to do this video for a while, but I did have to rewatch a couple of things before getting on it. But I've done that. I did it throughout this week, and so today we are doing Infinity War versus Endgame. So let's get started. So, before we get started, I just want to thank you guys. The support has been really helping. We got 100 views on the Cherry Trailer reaction, that's the most popular video. We almost reached 70 views on the Pixar video ranking. So thank you guys so much. It means so much to me. So, how we're gonna do this is we have 7 categories, and we are going to be comparing both movies. Now, these are 2 wildly different films in terms of pacing, characters, stakes, story. They are very different. They're just connected by one event, but they feel like very different films. They don't feel like part 1 and part 2. These feel very distinct, and that's what I really like about these, and that's why I think the Russos did an amazing job. So here are the categories we're going to be looking at: villain, heroes, moments, rewatchability, action, cinematography, and pacing. Now, some of those you probably already yeah, that one's going there, that one's going over there, but some of them are actually really tough. So let's get into it. So we're starting with heroes. Now, this is a difficult one because whether you like Infinity War's heroes with, you have every character we've ever seen in this universe brought together with fun and epic interactions, or you have Endgame, which has less characters but more intricately made character arcs. Personally, I think I love what they did with Infinity War, and it's probably the one that took the most work, but I think Avengers Endgame has better character moments and characters as a whole, Tony has an amazing character arc, throughout the MCU, but it is capped off so well here. Cap has one of the most beautiful endings. Tony has one of the greatest deaths, and yeah, most of the characters have some really, really good character arcs, so I think I have to give it to Endgame for the first point, but Infinity War, it's so fun to see all these characters come together. It's just, there's not that much character depth apart from Thanos, which is another category, and Thor loses a lot, so Endgame takes the cake. Next, we have to look at villain, and it is pretty widely known that Thanos is one of the best MCU villains. Personally, I prefer Loki a little bit more, just because his story relates with me so much. Go check out my book review on Loki Where Mischief Lies, by the way. I didn't get that many views on that. That was pretty experimental, but hopefully it picks up at some point. But villain, let's look at Infinity War. Thanos has a clear motive that almost makes sense. I mean, you don't agree with him, but you understand where he comes from, and he's not driven by, revenge or wanting to take over the world. He just wants to save the world, or that's what he thinks. And after that, he doesn't care anymore, his purpose is fulfilled. And so I think that was amazing, and he just thinks he's right, and it just makes for so much. And he poses a nice threat, the Avengers can still, almost take him down, but not quite, sometimes they get him at a couple of times, but they make mistakes. Now, when we look at Endgame, the power levels are very different. Thanos is really OP, he takes down the Avengers. They never even get a chance to beat him. I mean, he has all his armies, but come on. But in that movie, well, it makes sense, his transition to wanting to eradicate the entire universe and then bring a new one to life, it just makes him kind of generic. He just wants to, wipe out the universe. He poses more of a threat, maybe in Endgame. He's scarier, more imposing, but I have to give this one to Infinity War for sure. I mean, he's much more compelling there. In Endgame, he's kind of the generic villain that he's still good, but he's not as good as he was in Infinity War. He's kind of the way he is in the comics. So, Infinity War gets 1 point. Now next we have to look at moments, and this one is one that's tough because you have character moments, but you also have emotional moments and epic moments. In Infinity War you have some really epic moments. You have Thor entering Wakanda. I think that's one of the most epic scenes in the MCU. And on the emotional side, you have the snap, you have Loki's death, that's always got me. I mean, oof, that hits hard. You have Gamora's death, you have Vision's death. I mean, I don't think anybody cried for Vision, but hey, give the guy a break. But it has some solid moments. The interactions between the characters, those are really fun. But when you look at Endgame, Endgame feels more like that culmination of all those films. Infinity War brings those characters together, but Endgame does more with the overall moments. You got Avengers Assemble, which might be my favorite moment of the film, or I Am Iron Man. Honestly, both of them are amazing. Cap wielding Mjolnir, Thor getting both hammers. In the middle, you get Tony seeing Howard. So, obviously, I have to give it to Endgame because of the epic moments, but if you look at the emotional moments, you have Black Widow's death, which really hit me the first time I saw it. I teared up. I haven't teared up since, and then Tony's death, which still has me tearing up after like 5 or 6 viewings. I was sobbing the first time I saw it. It is like the most epic and sad death in the MCU. So I have to give this one to Endgame, of course, because it is the last one. But I do think Infinity War has some solid stuff as well. Right now we're gonna stay in the more wide audience stuff and rewatchability. This is a tough one. I honestly haven't even picked who I think might be it. But Infinity War, while it is probably the more depressing story, it still feels very fun. The tone, you got some nice humor with Drax's invisibility, you got some nice emotion. That movie balances its tone really well, which makes it super fun to watch. It feels very MCU, where Endgame feels like a very distinct tone, which is more depressing. Still has some jokes, but it's more on the depressing side. So both of them have different tones, and depending on what tone you prefer, you will rewatch that one. Personally, I think Infinity War tone is a bit better. It's the one I'd rewatch the most. Endgame has a lot of epic moments and all, but once you've seen those, it's cool, but it's not as fun to rewatch them. With Infinity War, it's fun to rewatch these character interactions. So I do think Infinity War is a bit more rewatchable, and at the end of the day, Endgame, because it has all those emotional moments and all, it's draining and it's hard to rewatch at points. It's not the easiest one to rewatch. The stakes are so high, and in Infinity War they are high as well, but the tone is a bit better. It's a bit more wide audience. So for this one I have to give it to Infinity War, but with how many times I've watched each movie, I've probably watched Infinity War like 8 times and Endgame like 6 times. Now it's time to get into the fun part, the action, and this one is tough. Because Infinity War has a lot of really fun and well choreographed action scene. You got the epic battle of Wakanda, and you got the nicely choreographed battle of Titan. I think the action is very, very well done in there. And then on the side of Endgame, you got not that much action in the first 2 acts, and then you got the 3rd act, which is action at its highest in the MCU, most epic. So it's tough because Infinity War has some action all throughout, but Endgame has that just epic finale. For me, most memorable one is Endgame. Even though I think it's better to have a couple like really good action scenes than just one great action scene in your movie, I will give this to Endgame because it's so epic and because of how crazy it was when we saw it in theaters. But Infinity War is a close one. Now here we have pacing, and this is where we get more technical, but in terms of pacing, really depends what you think, because the two movies are very distinct in their pacing. Infinity War is fast-paced, it's edited together so well, you got every battle going on at once, and it never feels overwhelming. Every story, every location is as interesting as the other. Endgame feels like three different acts, three different movies, and I think that's cool. It feels less chaotic, but I think in the overall arc of things, Infinity War is the one that flows the best. Endgame, you got the first arc with them trying to get the stones back and do everything, and then you got the time heist, and then you got the third act. A lot of people just go to the third act for Endgame. But for Infinity War, people just watch the whole thing because you just got the whole thing. So in terms of pacing, I think while Endgame's pacing might feel a bit more clean, I would say the one that flows the best is definitely Infinity War. So Infinity War takes the cake for this one. This might be a weird category, but it's one I feel is important. And the last one, now this one's already probably picked, but cinematography is a big part of a movie, some of the best looking MCU films are Thor Ragnarok and Guardians 2. Guardians 2 probably the best looking MCU film. And one of these is not that good looking and one of them is great. Infinity War takes the cake. I don't really have to explain each side of the story. I think Infinity War has the most beautiful colors and locations. Endgame, you got the time heist, and there are some locations, but they don't have as much colorful blend. And then you have the third act, which is awesome, but is in one of the most boring environment possible, which makes it easier to focus on the character moments and the action. But at the end of the day, I think Endgame is a bit bland looking. I think the cinematography could definitely be better. So I'm giving this one to Infinity War. And the winner is Infinity War. Avengers Infinity War wins. I think that movie is better. I think that movie is literally perfect. It has a couple of flaws, but I genuinely love that film. I do like it a bit more than Endgame just because it's a bit better. I love myself some Endgame, but at the end of the day, Infinity War has had the biggest impact on me, and it feels like more of that MCU we know, that tone, where Endgame tried something else, and some people might like that one more. Personally, I have to go Infinity War. I literally think that movie is perfect. I love Endgame. Both films are 5s out of 5s, 10s out of 10s. But, Infinity War, a 10 out of 10. And then Endgame is more like a 9.6 out of 10. So, if you want to see my reviews on those films, check out the links in the description down below. Those are my most recent reviews that I rewatched them this week. So, tell me what you guys think. Do you like Endgame more than Infinity War, or do you agree with me? We're gonna disagree. These are two of the best MCU films, so it's hard to compare them. And maybe it's a bit early, but we're almost 2 years in after Endgame, so I thought this was the time to do it. MCU ranking will be coming when Black Widow comes out in May. Hopefully it drops on Disney Plus, because if it doesn't, if it gets pushed back, I'll still get it in May, guys, so don't worry. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get more content like this. This isn't as formulaic as a ranking or a trailer reaction. I just thought this was a fun way to do it. So Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.